Nostradamus and the Third Antichrist. This will only be the prophecy that's given at the end of the book, and it's published by Watkins Publishing, London. Mario Redding is the author. Part 3: The Third Antichrist, the one still to come. The Third Antichrist astrological chart. Bearing in mind all that we know, thanks to Nostradamus, about the possible details of the Third Antichrist's conception and birth, we are now able to extrapolate with a fair degree of accuracy what his astrological chart might be. We know, for instance, thanks to Quatrain 334, 2034, birth of the Third Antichrist, presage 3, that the Third Antichrist will be conceived in the period immediately following the total solar eclipse of 20 March 2034, an eclipse that will pass over Central Africa, the Middle East, including Egypt and Iran, and South Asia, including India and China, and that he will be born in the new year of 2035. We also know that he will be born inside a triangle, roughly incorporating Ravenna in Italy, Ravna, Reka in Serbia, and Ravne na Karatskim in Slovenia. If we look at this triangle, we see that the obvious central point in terms of an acceptable average is Banja Luka in Bosnia-Herzegovina, scene of some of the worst of the ethnic cleansing during the Bosnian War, which included the destruction of 16 mosques by Radovan Karadzic's Serb authorities. I shall use Banja Luka, therefore, for want of a better, as the geological location and anchor of the Third Antichrist astrological chart. Let's assume for a moment, then, that his conception occurs on or around 21st of March. The World Health Organization allows for between 37 and 42 weeks of gestation for normal pregnancies, with the average time for parturition occurring 40 weeks after the last menstrual period, assuming for a moment that the mother concerned has a normal 28-day regular cycle. In other words, childbirth occurs an average of 38 weeks after actual conception. That's 266 days. But we know this does not occur in the case of the Third Antichrist because Nostradamus places his birth in 2035. So, let's assume the Third Antichrist is born on New Year's Day, a date which would seem to be both symbolically and ironically accurate. That would give a 286-day parturition from a conception date of 21st of March, which seems a little high. Deduct 10 or 11 days, let's say, for the end of the last menstrual cycle, and we are suddenly dead on the button at 275 days and a birth date of 1 January 2035, giving us a little over 39 weeks of parturition, a normal, natural term baby then. The following is what we get if we figure the Third Antichrist's notional birth date as 1 January 2035, at a little after midnight in the central geographical location of Banja Luka in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And readers, please bear in mind that this is an entirely theoretical exercise. Astrological summary. This is a man who likes being alone. He is disciplined, practical, and prudent, but also at times both miserly and grudging, something that may be exacerbated by his Liberian ascent, which will exaggerate his disinclination towards self-criticism, increase his self-satisfaction, and aggravate his refusal to acknowledge anything in the way of personal flaws. Adolf Hitler, too, had a Liberian ascendant. The Third Antichrist will be jealous of his prerogatives. He will not tolerate anything that smacks of disloyalty. The material world will matter more to him than the world of emotions. He will wish to exercise control over everything he touches. There will be little or no delegation with this man. He will aim for the top and wish to stay there. He will be fundamentally unsure of himself, and he will disguise this with a false sense of confidence. It will be lonely at the top, but this individual will refuse to show either weakness or vulnerability, and will thus isolate himself entirely from any conceivable influence for good in his life. He will not use mentors, he will not take advice, he will not listen. The third Antichrist's moon is also in Libra, which will, on the surface, allow the Antichrist to seem diplomatic, a peacemaker even, but his underlying aggression will show through when all does not go his way, and he may be subject to great rages if he feels he has been unfairly dealt with. The third Antichrist's Mercury in Capricorn, twinned with his sun sign in Capricorn, make him easily capable of getting rid of any perceived rivals. This is a calculating and thoughtful man who carefully judges what will most work to his advantage. The third Antichrist, Venus in Scorpio, may make of him a voluptuary. 2. Further emphasizing Nostradamus' use of the word adultery. In line 1 of the concatenation, he will have problems expressing what he feels for others, and may simply abuse them sexually or use them as objects. Think of Mussolini, Stalin, and Mao Zedong, all of whom abused their positions of power and privilege in search of sexual gratification. His Mars, equally in Scorpio, may exacerbate this tendency, further reinforcing the possessive nature of the beast, and his voluptuary aspect. He will also be likely to attempt to compensate for his emotional shortcomings via obsessive secrecy. Jupiter in Aries will simply add to the third Antichrist's disregard of possible consequences. This placement suits people who don't give a damn for the effects of their actions on other people. In the worst scenario, readers will forgive me if I tend towards the negative here. Such people can be boastful and vainglorious, constantly blowing their own trumpet and overwhelming others with the scale of their purported achievements. Saturn in Leo merely exacerbates the autocratic nature of the beast and makes him less likely to see things as they really are, but rather as he wishes them to be. He will be proud and unswerving and will show a marked refusal to accept any limitations on his behavior whatsoever. When he reaches the pinnacle of his ambitions, this man will still not be satisfied and will force issues over further until there is no possibility of a return of the status quo. Perspectives are lost, judgment is flawed, and loyalty by others goes unrewarded. Such a man is authoritarian to an extreme degree and can appear immutably austere once bedecked with total power. Uranus in Cancer reinforces the idiosyncratic nature of the beast. He will be moody and changeable and prone to violent emotional swings to the extent that underlings may be confused as to his real wishes. This then harks back to his sun sign of Capricorn, which in its negative aspects can lead to the inhibitions and to the lack of self-confidence which may lie behind such intemperate behavior. And yes, with Cancer as his midheaven, twinned with a rising Libra, worry will eat away even further at this man's self-confidence, making of him a potentially very dangerous human being indeed.